Hey guys, and welcome to episode number 95 of Diehlman at Halftime, the NBA podcast that tops all others. I'm your host, Larry Diehlman, joined by my co host, Chris DiPietro. If you're joining us for the first time, it's great to have you, and if you've been a regular listener, welcome back. We have a lot to cover today and not a lot of time to do it. We'll look at a general overview of the NBA this week and then discuss some important topics across the association. Let's get to our content for the week. Probably the biggest story in the NBA this week is that the league has unveiled three anti tanking proposals to the Board of Governors aiming to limit incentives for losing teams. The Board of Governors, for those of you that don't know, it's basically the owners. The governors, it's pretty much like the correct term these days. So the three solutions are this. The first solution would be you have 18 teams in the draft lottery. So this would be the seeds 7 to 15 in each conference, which would lower the odds of getting your top seeds. The bottom 10 teams have an 8% chance to move up, and the remaining 20% of the odds would be split between the play-in teams in descending order. The second option, 22 teams in the lottery, and you will be ranked based on a 2 year record, similar to what the WNBA does, which will be interesting because that's basically the entire league. You'd have the 7 to 15 seeds again, plus the four playoff first round exits in both conferences. Lottery teams would have a minimum win total floor for each season. For example, if you fall under the 20 win floor, you'll be labeled as a 20 win team in the lottery. But if you go over that limit, your 2 years will be averaged out. So it's basically a way to get tanking out of the way and to get a better draft pick. And the top four will still be drawn as part of the current lottery. The third option and the final option, we're back to the 18 teams again in a 5 by 5 lottery for the 7 to 15 seeds in both conferences. The bottom five teams have equal odds for the top pick with the lottery picks with lottery for picks 1 to 5. There'd be a separate lottery for the remaining 13 teams, and if any of the five worst teams don't land a top 5 slot, the lowest they could go is 10. So, Chris, a lot going on here with these anti tanking proposals. Each one has, I guess, their pros and cons, but just a lot going on. And at least Adam Silver is trying here to resolve this tanking solution because you had said last week if the NBA expands to Seattle and Las Vegas, tanking has to be resolved first.
I don't know how you feel about these just in general, but I absolutely despise these. These are infuriating to me. That they're trying to get way too fancy with this. All of these ideas are making it harder for bad teams to get better, which is the root issue. This is the problem of tanking. It's how can we fix the issue of bad teams staying at the bottom, being uncompetitive for long periods of time? That is the root issue of tanking. None of these are fixing them. They're prolonging even further the period of time in which bad teams will be bad instead of making it shorter like it is in virtually every other major sports league. The NFL, you see horrible 2 and 15, 3 and 14 teams turning around all the time. And saw this quote on Twitter, thought it summed things up perfectly. Maybe if we complicate it enough, people won't know how to complain about it. That's all I felt while reading these proposals. They really frustrated me. They keep messing with this current system and altering the odds and the size of the lottery pool. None of that's going to work. First of all, yeah, it's just you can't tinker with this current framework that this current system like it's clearly not working. They've messed with it before and it's done absolutely nothing if not made the problems worse. I don't think messing with this current framework is going to make anything better. Second of all, it makes the draft that much harder to follow. We have to simplify or completely get rid of pick protections. That has to be the first order of business here. that's where this whole tanking solution needs to start. We have to dumb down or completely get rid of these pick protections. With less or no pick protections, there's less reason to race to the bottom spot in a conference. There's less reason to gamble away your draft for the next 6 years and nuke your franchise. And it is so, like I said, complicated for the average fan to follow it. It's infuriating that they're doing absolutely nothing about this. You look in that ginormous Shams tweet about all these brand new, fancy tanking solutions that Adam Silver's been in the lab creating to solve this big issue. Not one mention of pick protections. So aggravating. They're making rebuilding through the draft less and less reliable, which is where it's going to have to start for a lot of these bad teams. It's already unreliable enough. You have teams like the Brooklyn Nets and the Utah Jazz and the Washington Wizards who have sucked for 5 years, still waiting on their draft blessing. And you're making that even worse with these proposals, increasing the pool size, flattening the odds. There are ways to go around this. There are more comprehensive changes to the league that can be made that will seriously have an impact on these teams' desire and drive to win games. And again, in this current framework that Adam Silver continues to tinker with and thinks he's going outside of the box when he's really not, this is not going to do anything long term, in my opinion. It's really going to be aggravating when they inevitably follow through with one of these three proposals. It's gonna still keep these same teams just in the basement until they get a lucky, um, call on the lottery and get their first or second pick in a good draft class, because that's what it's gonna take for these teams to escape the bottom. And Adam Silver is making it more unrealistic, more unreliable to build through the draft. So it's immensely frustrating as a fan of the sport and also a fan of the management side of things, the roster construction, the strategy of this stuff. These half-assed proposals that they hurt to see, in my opinion. No mention of shortening the season, no mention of any sort of tinkering with pick protection laws. Just they're just doing the bare bones changes to this already failing system. So I'm just really frustrated at all of these, to be honest. I would love to know how you feel though, and I'm curious after reading these. It seems like we're going to be headed towards one of these three proposals. So I'm curious to hear which one you like the best, one that stood out to you, for good or maybe for bad, if there's one you really don't like. I'm curious.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at all of these, I can see where you're coming from with the, frustrating aspect of it. It honestly, and like I am by no means a dumbass, but the second one with the 2-year record and the win floor and all that, it took me a minute to realize like what they were actually trying to say. Like,
Exactly. Like
I
it's
am,
like a lecture.
I'm
Like
not
it's
like
it's it's unreal.
I am by no means a stupid person. I have 2 bachelor's degrees from Rowan
Well,
University, but like it took me, I'm like, what is this trying to tell me right now?
it's
So,
ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's too much.
I think the most likely one, just going off of likelihoods and what would get past the easiest. I'm just gonna stick with number one, lowering the odds. But you see with like the Pistons, not the Pistons we know now, but the Pistons of a couple years ago when they were absolutely stinking up the league, and no matter what they did, they were still getting the number 5 seed in the draft. And then you have the Mavericks last year who traded away Luka Doncic, and all of a sudden they got the number one pick with one of the worst odds out of any of the teams. And now you have fans accusing Adam Silver of rigging the draft. And, there's conspiracy theories of, oh, well, Adam Silver, wanted to get the ratings back up in Los Angeles. And, he promised the Mavericks trade Luka and we'll give you the number one pick and blah, blah, blah. But, it's definitely infuriating from a fan standpoint. And yeah, these are I don't know how you would deal with this. The NFL is kind of straightforward, but the NFL there's not as many games and every game counts.
You
82
can't
games,
do it like the NFL,
82
and that's what's
games.
hard.
I think I think a lot of players and coaches want the league to the season to be shortened, and just the tanking. You get to like January, and I don't think half the league even cares. I mean, you look at like Utah and Washington. They probably haven't cared since like President's Day weekend at least. So it'll be interesting to see which one they decide on, or maybe if there's a dark horse that we don't know about yet that makes
I
a
would
surprise
love a dark
appearance.
horse to please come save us from these really just seemingly ineffective to me proposals. Larry, you mentioned the Detroit Pistons of the past couple of years. Again, not these one seed Pistons we know today, who, they were like consistently a bottom three, four team in the league, if not the worst team in the league. And they just continually ended up with like the fifth and sixth picks in the draft. And then, like you said, the Mavericks, who, had the world in their hands and then gave up the world and then magically got it back with like a 1.8% chance. And it got the blessing of Cooper Flag. That premise, that idea of a team being at the bottom for so long and not being able to get out of it. The Pistons were able to get out of it, but it was really through things outside of the draft. The draft did them no favors, and the draft has to be the biggest driver of these rebuilds. It's the root of it. It's an injection of young talent that can turn a franchise around. The Pistons were so bad for so long and were given absolutely no favors, and the Mavericks were great and made a finals run a couple of years ago and had one of the best players in the league, and then they get gifted a generational prospect in Cooper Flag. That same idea does not get any better with any of these proposals. It makes it easier for teams like the Mavericks to get higher picks, and it makes it harder for teams like the Pistons, who were so bad for so many years, like the Nets, like the Jazz. It makes it harder for them to rebuild through the draft. So I really just can't see any of these making any sort of major change or alleviating anybody's concerns about the draft lottery. Again, I just think this is prolonging the issue. I think it's overcomplicating the issue. And to me, it's really frustrating to see these as our big proposals. Adam Silver said he was going to kill tanking. He was going to take a pitchfork to it and eliminate it. It's the biggest problem in our league. And then he suggests these three proposals that are basically just the same system we have now, but a bit more complicated and make it a bit harder for bad teams to get good picks. So yeah, great job, Adam Silver. You're truly one of the greatest commissioners of all time. The fan base loves you. And we love these proposals. Yeah, can't wait to see them in action.
Well, what about the Spurs too? Getting three insanely great prospects. You get Victor Wembanyama, Dylan Harper, and
Yes,
Stephon Castle back
please.
to back
Yeah,
to back.
continue to prove my point. It's ridiculous. And all of these proposals, they either increase the pool or flatten the odds in some way where it's harder for bad teams to escape the bottom. They took no outside roads to this tanking issue. They just took the current system and they're honestly making it worse, in my opinion. And
It's
it's just
whoever it's
ridiculous.
whoever it's whoever has the biggest markets and whoever's going to get the most ratings. Like you're saying, keeping teams in the bottom. Like I don't think anybody is going to want to like live or like watch the Utah Jazz willingly, or like the Wizards. I don't think it's just like most people don't really pay attention to them anyway, and now you're not giving them anything to help them get better, and they're just forever in this loop. And then you went about the pick protections too. I believe the Thunder are due a pick from the Clippers this year, and the draft is very loaded. So if the
Yo, shout
Thunder
out Darius Garland keeping them Clippers good and keeping the Thunder away from those top spots in the
if
draft.
the
So
Thunder get
shout
one
out
of these
Garland.
top picks, the league might legitimately be over. It's already over right now with the Thunder. If they get another pick, kiss the league goodbye.
Yeah,
So
GG's.
we'll see what Adam Silver wants to do in the future, which one of these picks will actually be selected for the lottery, and we'll see what the Board of Governors has to say about it too. This episode is entitled Coming into Focus. So, who's raising eyebrows at the moment?
All right, so as we turn a corner here, the final corner into the remainder of this regular season. Every team has roughly 8 games, give or take, left in their regular season. Some teams have more to play for than others, especially towards the bottom of these playoff play-in standings in the Eastern Conference. The current 5 through 10 seeds in the East are going to have a very, very interesting regular season finale here um over the next week or two. Currently, the standings, we have the Toronto Raptors, the 5th seed in the East. They are 4 games behind the Cleveland Cavaliers for fourth. So they will probably be staying at 5 or lower here in the standings. They are 42 and 32. A half game below them at 42 and 33, the Atlanta Hawks. At the 6th seed, at the 7th seed, half game below the Hawks, we had the Philadelphia 76ers, 41 and 33. 2 games under the Sixers for the 8th spot, the Orlando Magic at 39 and 35. A half game behind the Magic for the 9th seed, the Miami Heat at 39 and 36. And tied with the Miami Heat, Miami Heat own the tiebreaker between these two teams. We have the red hot Charlotte Hornets, who are 39 and 36. And the Hornets have a whole 10 games on the 11th seed Milwaukee Bucks, who have already been eliminated from playoff contention. So, with all that being said, it seems abundantly clear that these 6 teams will end up in some order between the 5th and 10th seeds in the Eastern Conference, which is very important because the 5th and 6th seeds automatically get slotted into the playoffs. They are above the play-in tournament. They do not have to play their way in to the NBA playoffs. So all of these teams right now are fighting for those 5th and 6th seeds. And again, with a roughly 7, 8 games remaining in all of their seasons, Larry and I took it upon ourselves to project how this end of season run is going to affect these standings, and we are going to predict how this Eastern Conference blitz to the 5th and 6th seeds is going to shake out here. So I think the best way to do this is um, both talk about our 5th seed to start here, and we will progressively make our way down. What do you say?
All right. And I think that you are correct in the fact that these teams will be 5 to 10 in some order, unless one of these teams goes on a blitzkrieg of a run to get that 4 seed, unless the Cavs and Knicks choke dramatically. This will
Yeah.
probably be the order in some fashion. And, it's just crazy that, already both conferences are set with the playoff and playing teams.
Mm.
In the East, the fact the Bucks are already gone, that's insane. The Pacers, going from one win away from a championship to being the worst team in the league, just shows how Tyrese Halliburton is. But anyway, um, my fifth pick or my number 5 pick to be in the playoffs, I'm going to go with the team that has probably the most playoff experience, and that is the Philadelphia 76ers. They are probably one of the best, if not the best team in this bunch. We've seen Joel Embiid continually come up short with the Sixers in the second round of the playoffs. Will they ever make the conference finals? Nobody knows. Um, Sixers are getting healthy at the right time. Paul George, Tyrese Maxey, Tyrese coming back from injury. Paul George, his 25-game PED suspension. And I think they just have what it takes to beat out these other teams, but I will go with the Sixers at number 5.
Sixers are also my 5th seed. I project them to have the best record of any of these teams. Actually, I'm predicting them to be tied with my 6th seed here, but they own the tiebreaker of this seed, who I'll get to soon after. Like you said, I think the Sixers are the best of this bunch here. Not only in terms of talent, but I think they're the hottest. And have the most momentum. They just had a huge win in Charlotte last night. It was the first game with Tyrese Maxey, Joel Embiid, and Paul George all back on the court in what has felt like months. And they finally get all their guys back. They're going into Charlotte, who has been super hot lately and is very much capable of making the run necessary to achieve one of these fifth or sixth seeds, these playoff spots, and evading the play-in tournament. So this was an absolutely crucial game for the Sixers. We didn't know if Maxey or Embiid or George would look rusty at all. We don't know how the fit would be. Again, it's been a long time since these guys have played together. Coming into a game with real stakes, and they showed up big time. They made a 15-point comeback. They showed up in the clutch, held it down. They all looked great. Every one of them. I believe Maxey had 26 or 28 points. Embiid had 30. Paul George hit a very clutch three at the end to take the game. So they're coming off a huge win at Charlotte. They're getting all their guys back. I'm going with the 76ers here to make the run necessary to attain one of these ever so valuable playoff spots. I have them finishing 47 and 35, tied with my sixth seed. But having the tiebreaker, my sixth seed is going to be the Atlanta Hawks, also finishing 47 and 35. Um, Arguably, with the Sixers, probably the hottest team of this bunch. They're 8-2 in their last 10. They are really starting to figure things out with CJ McCollum at the point guard, in absence of Trae Young. It's been so wild to see how different this team has played with McCollum instead of Trae Young. It's just so fascinating because we look at Trae Young like this potential franchise altering player, and we look at CJ McCollum like this talented player, but on his way out, not who he used to be, just like a I don't know. If you take CJ McCollum on paper, you're probably projecting him to be, I don't know, maybe a backup point guard for a solid team. And he has jumped into this huge role with the Hawks, and just like that, they've turned a corner and they're winning games. So it really begs the question about Trae Young, who we've questioned for the last several years of his career as to how much of a winning player he truly is. And again, we see this, aging okay player on his way out of the league come in, take his spot, and now the Hawks are maybe the hottest team in the Eastern Conference right now. Um, again, 8-2 in their last 10, playing really good basketball right now. Shout out CJ McCollum. He's really doing his thing. Unk still got it. I'm going with the Hawks in my sixth seed, finishing with the same record here as the 76ers at 47 and 35. Who is your sixth seed, Larry, securing this final playoff spot?
Securing the final Eastern Conference playoff spot. I'm going with we the North with the Toronto Raptors. The Raptors are an intriguing team with the forwards they have with Scotty Barnes leading the way and continuing to grow under head coach Darko Rajakovic. And the Raptors have kind of been in this middle land the last couple of years, obviously winning the championship in 2019 with Kawhi Leonard's 1 year in the North. But, they've been continuing to grow. Brandon Ingram's been injured, but, Scotty Barnes leading the way, and they have nice depth. So they've really been like a surprise this season in the Eastern Conference. And I think, they'll keep that momentum going, maybe just a little bit over the Hawks. But for now, I'll put the Raptors keeping momentum, keeping that sixth seed, and staying out of the play-in tournament.
The Raptors were my seventh seed, just a game behind these Hawks right here. I decided to predict the records. I went a little overboard for this, but I got them right behind the Hawks at 46 and 36, just barely missing that playoff cutoff, being the seventh seed and thus the highest team record wise in the play-in tournament. The Raptors, they have just been, consistently a solid team all season. I believe there was a stretch around November or so where um they were like I think they were the second or third seed in the East, and they started to look like they were really starting to take over. But um Unfortunately that kind of just seemed to be a flash in the pan for them. But not to take away from them at all. They've been great this year. They've definitely taken a step forward this year. I think Scotty Barnes has taken a big step forward this year. This has been the best season of his career, in my opinion. Um, he is one of the best defenders in the NBA. Um, and watching him and his movements, you wouldn't quite guess it because he's not the most fluid mover with the basketball in his hands, but he has a really great playmaking feel, super physical defender, super physical rebounder. He's just a force of a player. He's made a steal. I think he's taken a step forward this year into becoming a more polished, well-rounded player. Um, and this Raptors team, who in the beginning of the season we said had a lot of talent around them, but we questioned the fit a bit. These guys are starting to look more comfortable. Shout out Darko Rajakovic for that. He's been very solid for them this year, and I think their step forward is evident of the job he's doing. You can't make talent click without a great coach, and he's doing his thing. The Raptors are 10 games above 500. But I'm gonna have the Red Hot Hawks just sneaking in right above them. The Raptors are my seventh seed in the East.
And we have officially swapped places because the Hawks are my seventh seed to start the play-in spot.
All
So
right.
pretty consistent so far. The Hawks are, same as the Raptors, kind of an interesting story. And Atlanta has, for some reason, they're always in the play-in tournament, or they're always like that, right, like 500 record. No matter what they do, they just cannot seem to escape that, mediocre, middle of the
And
pack
CJ
kind of
McCollum said no more.
for now, that 9 win stretch to stay the ninth seed kind of sums up their franchise in the present. But getting better consistently, getting Jalen Johnson, the keys to the franchise is going to help. CJ McCollum for now, giving them some good buckets, and this is without too, with the Hawks. Zachary Risachet was the number one overall pick in 2024, and he really hasn't done a whole lot to say, "Yep, I am a true number one pick in a,
To
in
say the
in
least.
a in a redraft. I am the number one choice, no questions asked." He has not really done much to wow anybody. I think everybody kind of forgets who he is at this point. Um, Obviously, Victor Wembanyama is the better French player in the NBA. So my question is, can the Hawks get out of their playoff funk that they've been under with Trae Young previously? With Trae Young, they just were constantly in this playing spot. But can the Hawks kind of get out of that funk that they've been under? So the Hawks are going to be my 7 seed prediction to start the play-in tournament seeds. And the thing about the 7 seed, yeah, you got to be in the play-in tournament, but you win and you're in. Are you going to get spanked by the second seed? Maybe, but you are winning in. You get a home play in game. Stats really don't count either way. They're kind of like their own thing, but I will go with the Hawks at number 7.
I could see the Hawks or Raptors maybe making things a bit frisky for the Celtics in round one, but I think Boston will win those series. Whoever ends up in the seventh seed, I think I'll handily take Boston, but I do really like both those teams. I think they're very solid teams who have taken steps forward. But in my eighth spot, I have two teams tied record wise for my 8 and 9 spots. But owning the tiebreaker between the two, and my number 8 seed is the Miami Heat. I have them finishing at 43 and 39. Um, there was a quote lately or an incident where Bam Adebayo and his 83-point scoring self was getting quite angry at longtime head coach Eric Spoelstra, and I believe a hot mic picked up what he was saying, and he was yelling at Spoelstra, saying, "I don't want to be in the play-in no more." Well, Bam, I'm sorry to inform you, you're going to be well in this play-in, whether you like it or not, because I really just, this isn't a very different Miami Heat team than years past. Honestly, they just got spanked by the Indiana Pacers, the 15 seed. in the East, Indiana Pacers. I believe they're the worst team in the NBA. They are the worst team in the NBA. Indiana Pacers um took a beating to the Miami Heat tonight. Um the Heat are hold on. Heat are 3-7 in their last 10. They're on a two-game losing streak. They really just don't have a guy I look at and I'm like, man, this is gonna be the guy who they can lean on in this final stretch of the season and make a run and secure that playoff spot. I can't see that happening. This has kind of just been the heat of years past. They're a solid team. Spoelstra, almost like Mike Tomlin was and John Harbaugh is in the NFL. I mean, they're always going to be competing for the playoffs, but they just lack the guy who is going to elevate the team and show up in big games and go out and win games. They don't have that X factor. Bam Adebayo, 83 points or not, yeah, he's not that player. Um, so I'm gonna take, but again, they're a solid team. I expect them to win. Um, again, roughly half of their remaining games as they won about half of their games this season, which is, kind of what we come to expect of the Miami Heat under their current roster construction. Um, shout out Chi-Town Low. I think they need to start thinking about blowing this thing up because again, it's not a bad team. You have pieces, you have picks, but this just isn't going anywhere right now. Nonetheless, the Miami Heat are my eight seed at 43 and 39, and they will be in that first um play-in tournament game. Again, win and you're in um as the seventh seed. So yeah, well in the playoff conversation. They'll be they'll their fate lies in their own hands, as the eight seed. But yeah, don't expect to see much playoff noise if they even make it out of the Miami Heat, but they're my eight seed.
At the eighth seed, I am going with the the underdog here. I'm going to go with the Charlotte Hornets. I'm kind of
I like it.
surprised. I'm kind of surprised about the Heat, like you say, with the not really having like an it factor. But the Hornets, they've been impressing all season. Colin Knippel's been breaking 3-point records left and right. Um, I don't know what their young ceiling is yet. I don't think anybody does. I don't think even they know what their young core ceiling is, but
That's a great
usually
way to put it.
usually you take the veterans over anybody. Con Knippel is a rookie. LaMelo Ball in years past, he's been made of glass, and he's finally starting to, you know, break that mold. But like, what is their ceiling, like, legitimately? I think Charles Lee can get them so far, being an NBA winning former assistant coach, but now he's the head coach. Um, he can only do so much. It'll be the players that'll decide their fate. And I think that, Charlotte is not going to just, you know, go through the play-in tournament or whatever and then steamroll their way to the NBA Finals. This isn't the Miami Heat a few years ago where, Jimmy Butler was taking them on like a magic carpet ride to the NBA Finals. So, I mean, that because Jimmy Butler's, he's a veteran. I mean, this is a young core, and takes a couple years to kind of get your footing in the playoff setting. So I'll take the Hornets at number 8. Getting that second play-in spot, they'd be on the road, winning in, potentially against the Hawks here in my scenario, but I'll go with them number 8. And then to counter your Heat point, I do agree though. The Heat have just been a play-in tournament favorite the last couple years. Not really any wow factors for scoring besides Tyler Hero and Norman Powell. Bam Adebayo, I don't think scares anybody in terms of scoring. Well, besides the Wizards, giving them besides giving the Wizards PTSD on the fateful night of March 10th, 2026. But um, the Heat just I'm very, it's very questionable. Tyler Hero, Norman Powell, sure. Andrew Wiggins, I don't think scares anybody respectfully, but yeah, so I don't really know how to grade them. But Hornets at number 8, and then I'll go with my number 9 pick here. I'm gonna go with the Orlando Magic. The Orlando Magic have kind of taken a step back in recent years. There have been questions about Jamal Mosley and Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner when healthy are great, but there's been question marks. And you think that this team have would have a little bit more firepower given the fact that they traded a decent chunk for Desmond Bain from the Memphis Grizzlies. They got him
A
in an
decent
Orlando.
chunk.
They got him in Orlando Magic uniform, and they've kind of just been like, okay, nothing crazy. They haven't been like the Raptors shooting up to the second seed. They haven't been terrible. It's just been, what else can you give me?
Yeah,
So
when you give up 4 first-round picks, you don't expect to be like fighting for
Rudy
the eighth
Gobert set
seed.
the standard for draft picks, trading 4 picks. So everybody's thinking, well, if Rudy Gobert got 4 picks, then we should get 4 or 5 picks for, insert player here. So, yeah, so the Magic are my 9 seed, and then by process of elimination, the Heat at number 10.
So the Charlotte Hornets were my 9 seed. I had them tied in record with the Heat, and the Heat owned the tiebreaker. So they ended up falling to 9 here. But I'll say, out of all of these teams we've discussed so far today, you spoke of the Jimmy Butler magic carpet ride. I think these Charlotte Hornets have, I don't know, maybe the best chance to make that type of magical low seed run to a deep playoff spot. I think these Hornets have the best chance maybe since those days of Jimmy Butler, Miami Heat. I mean, this has been a special season for the Charlotte Hornets. They have been a different team post All-Star break, like one of the best teams in the East. So again, you have this team who's currently the 10 seed. We're projecting to finish around 8 or 9, who is playing like one of the best teams in the East. I think, regardless of where they end up in the standings, I think they're going to end up in the playoffs. I think they're going to win their play-in games and fight their way into the playoffs. And I mean, this is a team you do not want to play as a top seed, nor the Sixers, in my opinion. I think the Sixers and the Hornets are the two only teams of this bunch that really have the potential to shake things up seriously. But they fall into the 9 seed just because of the tiebreaker with the Miami Heat. Um, and by process of elimination, the Orlando Magic are my 10 seed. They are 3-7 over their last 10. This has just been a disaster of a season for the Magic. You gave up all those picks to go get Desmond Bain, and you expect this big jump from Paolo Banchero, and you hope to get everybody healthy, and that's just not been the case. Desmond Bain has been great for them, maybe their best player this season. Franz Wagner has been great for them. They have a big Jamal Mosley, Paolo Banchero problem on their hands. Paolo, again, still 21, 22 years old, has all the potential to turn this thing around. But I really just don't believe in Jamal Mosley. There's been friction between those two. And, as the beams of your franchise, that's not good to have. They've just been severely underperformed this year and are not playing well at all right now. Maybe the worst they've played all year right now. It's coming to a tumultuous end here. The Orlando Magic finish as my 10 seed.
See how this works out in the last couple weeks of the regular season. Two of these teams will make the playoffs. Four of these teams will be stuck in the play-in, and then two of those teams will have to battle it out to get those last two playoff spots. A lot of stakes, not enough for everybody. Let's see how it goes. Finally, for this week's game of the week, we're going to do the Philadelphia 76ers at Miami Heat. And this game is tomorrow, Monday, March 30th at 7 o'clock sharp. Well, maybe like 7:08, but still. The Sixers right now, 41 and 33 and seventh in the East. The Sixers just got Paul George back, as I said earlier, from his 25 game PED suspension. Tyrese Maxey is back from injury and nearly had a 26-point triple double on the Hornets. The Sixers are only a half game out from the number 6 seed. Can they knock the Hawks into the play-in tournament? Meanwhile, the Heat are 39 and 35, and they're tied for ninth in the East with the Hornets. The Heat are most likely going to be stuck in the play-in tournament again, um, to the chagrin of Bam Adebayo. Poor Bam Adebayo just, can never do that. He'll drop 83 points and they'll still be in the play-in tournament. Yeah, they recently got spanked by the Spurs and the Cavs, and as Chris pointed out, the Pacers as well. But this game should be a good one to decide play-in and playoff factors with the seeding. Obviously, no one can drop below the play-in seeds as of this point because the first through 10 seeds have been solidified. Everybody below that is out. So I am going to go with the Sixers in a tight one, 116, 113 down in South Beach. Um, I think it'd be interesting to see a game in Miami because if you've ever seen a Heat game, the fans don't show up until like the second quarter because of the traffic I've heard is pretty bad down there in Miami. But it's just hilarious to see most of the seats empty. In Philadelphia, the seats are full like 2 hours prior to game time. In Miami, you're lucky if you get people before the first quarter. So I'm going with the Sixers in a 3-point spread in Monday night prime time.
How blessed are we to be a fan of a sports city where our fans really care and are invested and we're like a family. Love being a Philly sports fan. Just had to get off my chest. And with my pick in this game, I mean, have you even listened to that last segment of the podcast? I'm going with the Philadelphia 76ers. They have every bit of momentum going their way right now. 7-3 in their last 10, and like I mentioned earlier, a absolutely crucial win in Charlotte. Their first game with all of their key players back. They get Oubre back. They get Tyrese Maxey back. Embiid is starting to ramp back up. Paul George, um, and I believe that was his second game back. They're getting all their guys back at the right time. They're heating up at the right time. It's so funny looking at their starting lineup graphic from just about a week ago with VJ Edgecombe and a bunch of nobodies compared to the other day against Charlotte, where you know that they got their guys back and it made a huge difference in that Charlotte game, an absolutely crucial win, a huge comeback. So it doesn't get better for the Sixers right now. You couldn't have picked a more favorable time to get all your players back and to earn such a crucial win. But um, this is a big game for the Sixers as well, and the Heat are no slouch. Um, it's in Miami on the road. Um, but again, Miami has not been the hottest team despite their name. 3-7 of their last 10. Um, it really just looks like we're looking at two teams going in opposite directions regarding their momentum. But a huge game in these Eastern Conference standings, these 5 through 10 seeds, which will decide the fate of these teams in the playoffs or play in. So a huge game for the standings, huge game for both of these seeds. But again, the Sixers are red hot. The Miami Heat, ironically, ice cold. I'm going with the Sixers in this one. Let's call it 125, 113. So we'll have the Heat finishing with the same amount of points here, but I'm taking a much larger Sixers win as they coast to another big win for their odds at a playoff spot, and the Heat continue to dwell towards the bottom of these play-in standings.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. If you haven't already, make sure to follow the podcast accounts, Chris and me, on social media. The three podcast accounts on Instagram, TikTok, and X or Twitter are under at Diehlman at half. My personal X and Instagram are at Larry Diehlman. Chris's personal X and Instagram are at Chris Dippy. All seven handles are in the description on Buzzsprout, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Remember, although you can find Dealman at Halftime on major podcasting platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, and YouTube, The main podcast website is on Buzzsprout. The website URL is dealman@halftime.buzzsprout.com. Feel free to send a comment by using the Send Us a Text button located in each episode's bio. With the exception of Apple Podcasts, the text option is available on Buzzsprout and all of the major platforms. Your comment could end up in the fan mail section of the Buzzsprout website. And don't forget to spread the word about Dealman at halftime. You might remember a few weeks ago at episode 90 when I said we are 10 episodes away from the 100th episode of Dealman at halftime. Now, with it being episode 95 today, that number is at 5. We are 5 episodes away from the 100th episode, and that'll air probably in early May. We'll keep you updated. We will be in the playoffs during that time. We'll have something special for you guys planned. A lot of excitement happening here on the pod. We can't wait, and I hope you guys can't wait either. See you next time, fellow Hoops fans.